Hey, how are you doing? My name is Jerry Dugan. I am the owner and lead consultant at BTR Impact, where we help leaders thrive by really defining success on their terms so that they can live a life of legacy that is aligned in their personal values, their professional values, and create that kind of work environment so that their employees also thrive in a similar fashion. So, if you have a heart to serve others, you got that outward mindset, you want to create that servant leadership legacy, and you find yourself with an open mind and you have the courage to be coachable, this is the right place for you. And what I'm going to do in this session for about 30 minutes or less is I want to share with you how you can build using the Tent framework a servant leadership legacy for yourself. But then also, if you stick around, I'll give you a couple of free resources as well as make an offer for a 2-day workshop that's coming up. It's a two day intensive that is going to help you get to the root of some of the maybe workplace culture issues that you're facing. How do you boost the uh, accountability in your employees, the motivation, the performance of your employees, so that your customers are happier and you're generating more revenue and profitability as a result. So that is what we're tackling in the next 30 minutes or less. And I'm just going to dive right in. Now, I am fascinated with tents. So if you know me, you know I've got this big fascination with tents, and I came up with this framework called the tent. The leadership tent, and I've got this keynote presentation called "Stake Your Leadership Tent," and I go around and I let people know that they can turn their culture around within 90 days using this framework and the skills that go with it. So why tents? Well, if you think about a tent, it's got three main characteristics that are very similar to a a leader. So the first characteristic is that tents are mobile. They go where you want them to go. Uh, you don't have to go to that tent. You take the tent and you go where you need to go. In the same way, you meet your people where they are. So if they're a rookie in the field, you got to go a little bit slower, give more concrete examples, allow a lot more room for error, those kinds of things. The second characteristic is they're adaptable. Tents are adaptable to the environment around them. Like the one I'm showing right now, the Army general purpose medium tent, its sides are down. Well, if it gets hot, you can roll the sides up. It's got two holes in the front where you can stick an air conditioning unit or a heater. You can put stoves inside the thing. If it gets cold outside, you can add a liner or two to it as well. So this particular tent is adaptable, but same thing with a smaller 1 or 2 person tent. You can adapt it to whether or not you're on a hill, if it's a cold weather, warm weather, those kinds of things. Now, for a leader, you're adaptable to the environment around you. Maybe there's a new policy. Maybe there's a new law. Maybe, like what we found out in the COVID-19 pandemic, that the way we do business today is different and things have changed. People's expectations have changed on how they get service, receive their products. Our employees have changed their expectations on how work could be done and should be done. And so, as leaders, we can try to cram square pegs through round holes, or we adapt and we meet the needs of our people. So, that's the second characteristic where leaders are very much alike. Um, Tense. And the third thing is that um, once you have your tent set up, it creates a safe environment for the people inside. So, like the tent I'm showing, regardless of the type of environment, if you set it up correctly and you open up the doors and let people in, the people on the inside will be protected from the outside elements. Similarly, if a leader is truly serving the needs of the organization as well as the employee, the byproduct is you create an environment where your employees feel cared for, they feel heard, they feel that they have opportunity for growth and success, and then as a result, they take better care of your customers. A lot of organizations like Walt Disney Company have a lot of data to back that up. When their employees are happy and thriving, it's seen at the customer front. In healthcare, same thing. When the people working in that hospital feel taken care of, heard, safe, they're going to convey that and extend that to their patients. They have fewer safety events as a result, and the patient satisfaction is like through the roof. So that's something that's common in healthcare settings. So those are the three characteristics where leadership intents are the same. But let me tell you about this story about this particular tent. The general purpose medium, I got introduced to this tent in January of 2000. So this was way back at the beginning of my short Army career. And I was in a winter field exercise. So I was out there with a bunch of other soldiers, and I was tasked with a team of 11 other people. So there were 12 of us all together, and we were told to set up 5 of these tents all together. It took us all day, on average, about 2.5 hours per tent. And that was just to start a 3-week training event. Over the span of the 3 weeks, it was cold. Um, things got heated with people. We did a lot of cool things at the same time. I remember one of my favorite memories in the Army was a, a chance to practice loading patients on a helicopter, a bunch of helicopters. So they had a helicopter squadron nearby. They needed to get some flight time, and they saw that we were a medical unit in the field, and they asked if we would be interested in a night helicopter exercise. So we had a big open field. They were in a line. I think there were like 6 helicopters, and they took turns landing in a line. And then people would run out there with litters and had patients in them, and we'd load them up in the helicopter. We'd get off the field, and then they take off, do a little joyride, come down, and we get the patients off again. So really fun. I remember waiting out there for the first helicopter to land, and there were like 10 of our teams just all in a line, almost like a football team, but with patients and litters. They were fake patients, they were pretend. And there were four soldiers per litter and all that. And I remember as we were waiting for that first helicopter to land, I just thought, man, this is just like that TV show MASH. And so I started humming the tune. Do 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 do. And then I heard somebody yelling for us to stop doing that. "Stop singing. Who's singing? We're soldiers. Be professional." So I stopped. I thought, "Oh, man." Fortunately, it's dark. They're not gonna see who was singing. But when I stopped singing, I realized the singing's still going. And my whole team, the other 3 people on my team were singing. And the whole line of 10 litter teams were singing. And somebody actually knew the words and was belting out the lyrics. Um, the first sergeant couldn't get us all in trouble, so he gave up. Helicopters landed, we loaded, unloaded, all that stuff. So one of my favorite memories also comes from this field exercise. But let's get back to the tent. Why tents? And during the after action review at the end of the 3 weeks, the observer controller who watched us do everything for three weeks was asking us, what did we do well? What could we have done better? All those things. And the subject of these tents came up again and again and again. And so finally, the observer just said, "Okay, you're clearly not getting my hints. So let me just share with you where I was going with this. Um, your tents, you took kind of too long to set them up. You took on average 2.5 hours per tent, and it took 12 of you to do it. Do any of you happen to know what the Army standard is, or at least the old Army standard from the Cold War?" And we didn't know. Now, it turns out the label says a standard, and then the Army said we could do that in half the time. So here was the standard, and that was 4 people should set this up in 18 minutes. Now, if that's like, wait a sec, didn't Jerry say 12 people in 2.5 hours? Yes. So in the time it took my team to set up one tent, we were supposed to use only a third of the personnel to set up all 5. Crazy, right? And so the thing that I learned that day, which I carried into my civilian life as I go backpacking and hiking in the woods, is that the fastest way to set up a tent is just stake out the corners first. So at the very beginning of my presentation, when I said that, tents are really a metaphor for leaders, and that is that we go where people are, we meet them where they are, we're adaptable to change, and we create a safe environment for the people inside our teams. The fastest way to set up that kind of environment is to stake out the corners first. And so, as I go into the rest of this presentation and share with you what are those 4 stakes in the ground, your leadership tent, that is, what are the 4 stakes that if you do those 4 things consistently every single day, every single week, every single month, you will create this legacy of servant leadership where the people who work with you and for you thrive. And then, as a byproduct, you'll see that you'll have more profitability, lower rates of turnover with your staff, lower incidences of safety issues. All those things really come to play when you create this environment where your employees thrive. So As I dive into that, what I want you to do is grab a piece of paper. It could be a blank piece of paper. It could be the newspaper. I don't care. As long as you could write on it and add some notes, I want you to do a SWOT analysis as I share this information with you. So, SWAT, just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, it's not the special teams with the weapons in the police department. That's SWAT. Totally different thing. SWOT analysis, SWOT. The S stands for strengths. So as I'm talking, I want you to jot down, oh yeah, put a cross on that piece of paper. So in the upper left hand square, those are your strengths. What are you doing already that is thriving or helping your team thrive and building that servant leadership legacy you want? What are some of the weaknesses you have? Maybe it's something organizational. Maybe it's something you're not doing. Maybe it's something you're undermining and don't realize. What are the opportunities you have to improve the culture in your workplace over the next 90 days? And then what are the threats to those opportunities? Is it a policy that gets in the way? Is it a timeline, a major project? What is it? So, in the last 20 minutes we've got together, I want you to be jotting notes. What are the things you're doing well? The weaknesses, what are the things you could be doing better? Opportunities, what can you do about the weaknesses to make things even better in your organization? And then the threats, what could get in the way of creating that work environment that you want to see where people are thriving, including yourself, by the way. So, with tents, you may know this, I know this, and that is terrain matters. The terrain you put your tent on matters big time. So let's talk about the terrain. What are you dealing with when it comes to engagement of employees? Well, whenever you lose an employee, it's going to cost you about 1.5 to 3 times the salary of that person to replace them. And that comes from Gallup's State of the Global Workforce report back in 2022. So if the average income is $59,000 a year in the US, then it's going to take up to $177,000 to replace that person. And this comes in the form of overtime for your other staff. It comes in the form of lost productivity, the actual hiring costs, onboarding costs, training costs, the time that you have to take away from doing your job to interview for more people. If you're doing panel interviews, it's pulling people away from their jobs, it's making the decision. All those things really come together that your investment's about 3 times the salary of the individual you're trying to backfill. So your bottom line is impacted by this. Now, employee engagement, there are kind of 3 buckets we're talking about. The folks that we love are the actively engaged. That they're the people who, are the walking billboards of your company. You can trust them to take great care of the customers, take great care of your teammates. They do the right thing consistently. At the opposite end, these guys probably take up a lot of your time. These are the actively disengaged. So these are the people who they talk bad about the company. They talk bad about the customers, the coworkers. Nothing ever seems to go right. Oh yeah, this is typical. I see this all the time. Blah blah blah. They're the negative attitudes in the organization. Now, the folks that we really want to help are the people in the middle. You also want to keep the actively engaged, but the people in the middle are the ones that are at most risk because they're the most influenced by either end of that spectrum. So if you let the actively disengaged have the louder voice, get away with what they get away with, they're going to start influencing the people in the middle where you're not so engaged to start being more like the actively disengaged. They're going to leave in droves. They're going to not get their work done. They're going to show up late. They're going to leave early. They're going to complain to the customers too. And what you want is them to be influenced by the actively engaged. And that's where this tent and this 4 stakes come into play. So, what do we do? Why? Here's some more of the why. If you were to be measured through an engagement survey through like Gallup or Press Ganey and you found yourself in the top quartile, the top 25% in your industry, you could probably see about 41% lower absenteeism. So that absenteeism would be people calling in late, people calling in sick, those kinds of things. 41% less. And that when you consider that every employee you've got will cost you roughly $1,685 per person per year in absenteeism type of costs or lost productivity, do the calculation. How many FTEs do you have? What is that times 1,685? What is 41% less of that? You'll find out, and there's the benefit there. Revenue, if you're in the top quartile for engagement, you're probably going to earn about 147% more revenue than your competitors. That's pretty cool, right? And again, if you're in the top quartile, you're probably going to be about 21% more profitable after all those expenses of doing business, you're going to see more profit in the bank accounts of your company. So, why are people leaving? That's the big question. Then we'll get into how those four stakes in the ground help you build that legacy of servant leadership. So, Gallup did a lot of research and they found these big five reasons why people leave. The first one being lack of clarity on expectations. What does success look like in my job? How do I know I'm doing well? And if I don't see clarity around that, and I feel like I'm just kind of going through the motions and my work really does not have impact, I'm going to go somewhere where my work is a little bit more meaningful. That's the first bucket. A lack of connection to the mission and purpose of the company or how my work connects to the bigger picture of the company, but also connection to each other. How are your coworkers connecting with each other, becoming, uh, you know, humans on a team, individuals working together for a common goal? Also, connection to you as the leader. Can they trust you? That's a big part. And so it turns out the more connection you have with the people, the more likely you're going to trust, and the more likely you're going to do more than the bare minimum. Now, if you have less of that connection, you're more likely to leave and go somewhere and find that connection elsewhere. Lack of opportunities to learn and grow. So, upskilling has been a big strategy for companies over the past couple of years. That does not go away. Employees are looking to grow. They're looking to become stronger on their resume, stronger on their experience capabilities. They want to know they're not in a dead end job, that they can grow, even if they don't get a title promotion, that they are doing more than they were doing last year or the year before. A lot of engaged employees are looking for that. But then maybe they get those skills and they never get to use them. So, lack of opportunities to use untapped skills. So, getting to know your team really helps you see, oh, this person has a design background or this person has a marketing background. That could help us in maybe training and development, or this could help us in this area. So, learning the untapped skills that your team members have gives them a new work experience in the workplace. And here's a very important one: not feeling cared about at work. So if I feel like I'm just a number to you, just a cog in the machine, and you don't care if I'm sick or I was out for surgery, and the first thing you say to me when I come back from sick leave is, "Man, what took you so long to get back?" or "Where were you? We needed you." Um, not gonna feel cared about, and so I'm more likely to leave as well. So these are the top 5 reasons why people left their jobs in 2022, and from there, if you look at the flip side, these are the things that would help people feel cared about, feel like they're making differences, and are more likely to stay. So a lot of organizations were trying to make things up, not make things up, but make up for this gap by increasing compensation, being more competitive there, creating career pathways. So if you come in at this position, how do you grow? Where do you go from here within the organization? And then what are some training resources we have that'll skill you up and help you improve in your work? All good things. All good things. But when I talk to managers, here's what they were telling me, that if more people quit, I'm worried that I'll have to do everyone's job and I'll burn out and then I'll have to quit. You know, bad hires have really hurt the morale of my team. Just the warm body syndrome, getting anybody on with a pulse and the ability to get to work can actually hurt my team. And once I have that bad hire, it's hard to get that person out. And that just really brings morale and engagement down. When it comes to compensation, it never seems like we do enough for enough people. And I can't send everyone to training. There's not enough dollars, and there's not enough slots in the training, and there's not enough frequency in the training to get everybody upskilled in a fast enough time. And here was the big question that really stood out to me, and that was, what can I do now as a manager to help my team and not burn anyone out? Because a lot of folks feel like they're being asked to do more with less resources, less people, less money, less supplies, but they want to produce more. So, what can I do now to help my people grow, help them feel cared for, and not burn them out in the process? So, that's the big question. What can I do now to help my team? And that's where the tent framework comes in. So, four stakes in the ground, and in this order: trust building, empowering, navigating for success, and thriving together. And If you do these 4 things consistently in how you engage with your team, how you communicate with your team, how you make decisions, and they know that this is all for their well-being as well as yours and the companies and the customers, you're gonna create that environment where people feel cared for and they see opportunities for growth. Those are kind of the big 2 out of that 5, right? So let's take a look at the first one. Ooh, let's there we go, trust building. Aha. So think about a leader you've worked with in the past that had high levels of trust with you. What are the things that that leader did to build trust with you? And jot some of that down. And then on the flip side, you've probably worked with a leader who killed the trust that you would have had with them. And what was the work relationship like there? How long did you stay with that organization? And what were the things that that leader did to undermine your trust? So after this call, think about that and really jot down some notes. What are the things you're doing that are similar to that leader who built trust with you? And what are the things you might be doing that that other leader who killed trust with you? What are some of the things you might be doing? And that'll give you a nice big aha moment. Um, so, what activities undermine trust, and what are ways that a leader can build trust? Are two big questions to ask. Now, there's some specific skills around trust building that I teach in my workshops. They involve things like having a personal credo. So, what is it you believe in? What do you stand for? What will you fight for? What will you never do? Those are very important because it allows you to cast your vision to your team. This is where we're going. Here's the clarity you were asking from me. Self awareness. What is it I do that leaves a negative emotional wake in the teams I lead? What is it I do that builds trust and rapport? Um, I'm feeling upset. Why? Is it something this person did or is it something deeper than that? So from there, self management. I'm aware I'm upset. I'm aware that things aren't going my way. What can I do to make sure that I still maintain the trust of my team and get the results that need to be had? And being people centered. Remember that the people who report to us are people. They're human, just like us. They're going to probably respond to stress and crisis with fear. And we got to help them navigate past that fear. And to do that, we got to create that safe environment. And to do that, you got to have this first stake in the ground, trust. Let's look at another stake in the ground. But before I do, I want you to ask yourself if you've ever rented a car, have you ever washed that rental before you take it back? Why not? Because chances are you'll take your own car to the car wash. And this has a lot to do with sense of ownership. People are going to have more accountability on the work that's assigned to them, and they're going to have more initiative if they feel a sense of ownership on the assignment. Sometimes we fall in that trap or the easy thing that says, well, they clocked in, they're on our time, they owe us. But the reality is, every employee is kind of like an independent contractor. And we've made an agreement that if you come in at these times and you do this work, then we give you this compensation. It's kind of a contract, right? However, if you're looking for motivation and you want to increase accountability in your employees, you want to increase their motivation to go, not just meet the bare minimum, but to go above and beyond that, they've got to feel like it's part of their legacy. They got to feel a sense of ownership. They've got to be able to make some decisions here. And the best way you can empower your employees, which is another way of saying share your power as a leader with your team, is to provide as much clarity as possible so they know without you being present what is the right thing to do and what do they need to stay away from. Provide as much information as you can without violating anybody's privacy so that they can take that information, process it because of the clarity and the guidelines you gave them, and they can make a decision without you having to be the bottleneck. That is empowerment right there. But then there's also this thing called the weekly check-in. And Marcus Buckingham shared this. I saw a video of it. I've done this from time to time, and when I do, I see big results. This is the one thing that I'll share with you as a free resource later on. But here's the gist of it. With each employee who reports directly to you, you spend 10 minutes per week per person. That's it. So if you've got 6 employees reporting directly to you, then you got an hour, 1 hour investment right here. If you got 8, talking about 80 minutes. You got 20 people, spread it out over 2 or 3 days, but 10 minutes per week per person. And you ask these 2 questions. What are your priorities this week? How can I support you? That is it. You ask those 2 questions, you're letting them define what is the work that'll make the most impact in this organization because you've already trusted them with clarity and with information, and you're now empowering them with the same thing. They can say, based on what my boss's priorities are and the organization's priorities, I think these are my best priorities of work for the week. Here's how I can, get help from you. And that is going to boost the sense of engagement, ownership, and accountability among your employees more than anything else. You're welcome. You got that for free. Now, the impact of that alone among tech employees, there was a 53% increase in engagement and performance after 90 days of doing this practice every week. Among professional services like accountants, lawyers, and so on, it was like 62%. And then healthcare workers, this was the thing that blew my mind because I worked in the healthcare space, 83% increase in engagement and performance after 90 days of doing this every single week. Now, do you do this for 12 weeks and just say, quit? I'm done. I don't need to do this ever again. No, you just keep doing it every single week. And then you'll be like the lead department in engagement, performance, all those things. But let's move on to the third stake in the ground. So we'll talk about delegation in another session. Navigating for success. This is where you're helping your employees identify for themselves what does success look like for them in their career path, and then how does that line up with where I am right now in this company and in this department and on this team. So help your employees grow professionally. Think about in the leader that you've had who helped you grow professionally. How do they recognize you had a talent? How do they recognize that you had potential? How do they help you actualize all that potential? And here's some of the things I teach the people who attend my conference, not my conferences, my workshops, or my coaching programs. And that's, how to set goals with your employees that also kind of align with what the organization needs. But mainly, how does this benefit the employee? Providing feedback using the SBI model, coaching them, whether they're on track or off track, coaching them to keep them on track and excelling forward. And then mentoring is slightly different than coaching. Coaching, you don't necessarily have to have the experience they have. You just need to be able to ask the right questions to help them pull the answers out of themselves. Mentoring is where you're giving more of an in-depth insight of like how you got to where you are, your experiences, your failures, and so on. So they're kind of learning from your story in a sense and being in proximity with you. So by doing this, you're creating an environment that collaborates, that fosters collaboration for growth of your employees. And this is doable. This is very doable. But let's talk about the last stake in the ground, and that is thriving together. Did you know that if your employee receives regular doses of positive recognition for the work they're doing, that's very specific, shares with them the impact, they're 6 times more likely to stay with you than somebody who's not getting that kind of recognition. Now, unfortunately, 29% is the number of employees who said they have not received any recognition from their manager in over a year. And people oftentimes don't quit their job. They typically will quit their manager. And so what kind of feedback are you giving them? Recognition specifically that lets them know they're on the right track. That is huge. You may think, well, I let them clock in every day. No, that's again back to that contractual agreement. For motivation's sake and a sense of ownership, how do I know that my work is really making a difference here? And it doesn't have to be a C suite type of climb up the ladder or a big project. It could be somebody who is a greeter at the door at Walmart being told, hey, the way you interacted with that elderly lady really brightened her day. I don't know if you saw the change in her demeanor, but she spoke highly of you when she left the store yesterday. Huge. That would make my day. And a greeter doesn't get a lot of respect, especially on social media these days. People always seem to be picking on them about checking receipts. So moving on. Thriving together also means protecting that work-life balance. So allowing people an opportunity to raise their family and be a present parent is a motivator, especially in an environment where people can work hybrid or work from home. Um, we're now competing around that word flexibility. And that flexibility for a lot of people gives them the opportunity to be present for a child's school performance, to be present for a parent who's sick, to be present for a family member who needs to go to the doctor. And in a way, you can be that leader that's getting work done, who's helping their team grow professionally, and also provided the flexibility needed so that your employees could take care of the things that life throws their way. And that's servant leadership to me in a big way. So those are the 4 stakes in the ground. T for trust building, E for empowering, N for navigating for success, and the last T for thriving together. And you put those 4 stakes in the ground, you can immediately and very quickly pop up the kind of environment where your employees feel cared for and they have opportunities for growth. And that is how the tent framework, the leadership tent framework, can help you build your servant leadership legacy. Now, I did mention that I wanted to share with you a couple of freebies as well as um, an offer. And let's see, boom. I'm having trouble with my deal. So I'm gonna have to talk through this because for some reason my mouse, there it goes. Haha, take that. 10% smarter than my equipment. That's what I am. I want to share with you a couple of things that you may find useful. And the first thing is a freebie. I mentioned the power of 10. And what I want to do is let you go for free to uh, this site. It's right here. The Power of 10, it's a free e-course. It's like 15 minutes of me talking and really digging deeper on those 10 minutes a week per employee and how to plan that out. And the link for this is actually btrimpact.com/ the power of 10. And it's right there at the bottom of my screen. So go there, btrimpact.com/ the power of 10. You just got to put your email in there and your name, and then it's yours. You have access to that. It's got some planning worksheets sheets in the resources tab. Pretty cut and dry. You'll see the one video, and you'll see all the tabs on the right hand side. Just click around. You can't break anything. I'm the guy on the back end. I could break something, but you can't. The other thing is, I mentioned earlier the cost of turnover and the cost of engagement and the benefits of higher engagement. So at btrimpact.com/healthcare-staffing, you can calculate what's the impact of turnover on my organization, and a really cool thing. So it's a nice, neat tool that allows you to where'd it go? Hold on, let me find that for you. Boom, boom, boom. I can't find it. Well, forget about it. No, I'm kidding. No, it's go to the link I just shared with you. Let me just do this. Entire screen, share that, share that. It's right there. Nope, that's the workshop. There we go. btrimpact.com/healthcare staffing. This guy right here. Ignore what I'm Xing out because I'm already signed up to myself. But you plug in these 5 numbers right here, and it'll give you all this information around the cost, the impact of turnover, as well as the benefit or impact of engagement with your employees. So everything from the cost to replace employees, the impact of absenteeism, the impact on the revenue production, as well as profitability. So if you want that kind of information to make a case why training is such a valuable thing for your team, then that is something definitely worth getting your hands on to give yourself some estimates grounded in work done by the Society for HR Management, Gallup, Business Insider, and so on. And then the last thing I want to share with you, I am doing a 2-day workshop intensive for leaders. So if you're at the manager level and above, and you want to boost the workplace culture in your organization so that your employees want to stay and not just stay, they want to perform at a higher level. They want to be held accountable for their work. They want to be given more responsibility. They take on that responsibility really well, and you can't help yourself but to have to pay them more. Then this is the workshop you want to go to. It's 2 days long. We're going to cover everything from the leadership credo to the power of 10, the rounding conversation you can have with your employees to find out what's the vibe on my team, and how to handle toxic behavior. You probably have somebody who is just really bringing down the morale on the team. How do you address that in a way that doesn't get the company sued? How do you do it quickly? And then we're also going to have some power time where you get to have a think tank session with your fellow participants and really dig deep on something that's, you know, that you're facing, that you're struggling with. And when you come out of that session, you will have actionable steps. In fact, when you come out of every module in that 2-day workshop, you will have actionable items that you can legitimately do every single day for the next 90 days after you complete the program. And you'll see a huge improvement in the culture in your workplace, the performance of your team, and it's going to be worth its weight and then some. So remember, the cost of just losing one employee is going to be about $177,000 to replace the person. I'm offering this 2-day workshop for $1,997. So $1,997. And if you're watching this right now and you made it this far, here's the thing you don't want to miss out on. Until February 29th, I am offering a huge early bird discount, $1,000 off. That's over 50% off that price. All you got to do is go to this link right here, btrimpact.com/workshop. There are only 18 slots available for this workshop. Once I get to 10, I'm going to start shutting things down. And when it hits 18, there is not going to be a waiting list. So you want to be one of those 18 people. There's only about a week for you to take advantage of this early bird discount. It's the biggest discount I'm going to offer. I'm only going to reward the people who take action because that's going to tell me you're ready to make a difference on your team. You're ready to make a difference in the lives of your employees, the careers of your employees, and provide your customers with the best service possible. And if that's you, you want to jump in on this early bird, $997 instead of $1,997. And I'm only offering this until the end of the month, February 29th, 2024. So will there be other discounts? Probably, but it's not going to be anywhere near this big. So go to this website, sign up now the moment you see this. Hopefully you watch the whole thing because it pays to read the whole book sometimes. So sometimes it pays to watch all of Jerry Dugan because he's going to give away some free stuff at the very end. It's a reward for the people who get there. So there you have it. That is how you build a legacy of servant leadership by staking your leadership tent. I'm glad you watched this. I saw a couple of people pop in and out during the whole thing. But with all that said, you have a great day, a great week, and I'll see you on the next call. Take care.